Baby Driver, the latest from director Edgar Wright, a filmmaker who I've held in very high esteem, going all the way back to Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, World's End, Scott Pilgrim. Admittedly, I would have been curious to see how his Ant-Man would have turned out, but as evidence shows, I'm perfectly happy with what came out. How does this film measure up compared to his prior works? Well, that's what I'll get into today. His craft is still as sharp as ever. It is still kinetic. The camera work is insane. As usual, his practical work is through the roof. I can't even for the life of me pinpoint a single bad shot, a single bad take. He's probably one of the best filmmakers I've ever encountered who just seems to have an amazing grasp of motion. Even in subtle scenes, even in simple scenes like romantic scenes, there is stuff happening in the background which lends to the kinetic energy of the scenes. I never thought a scene at a laundromat could actually still be, well, I never thought it could be more romantic than for any scene in Dr. Horrible. So I guess we'll just get out of the way the things I will say is the shortcomings of it. First off, this film has an amazing setup. The first couple of chase scenes are probably some of the best I've seen. Probably some of the best I've seen since Death Proof back in 2007? Yeah, 2007. And it seemed, after all that, after some of the setup chases in the beginning, the first couple, the finale chase in the parking garage felt a bit rushed by comparison. The thing that keeps you going throughout is that the characters are still insanely well written, and I will say the story actually takes some routes I wasn't expecting. Going into spoilers on this. When you meet some of the people who usually are associated with their heist, with Jon Bernthal, Jon Hamm, and of course Jamie Foxx, even Flea. Flea has a role in this, and I always look forward to whenever Flea's on film, because you'd think that a guy like him would be pigeonholed in a particular type of character, but oddly enough, he actually, whenever he's on film, he always is something interesting. I mean, when it comes to being Needles in Back to the Future, or one of the nihilists in The Big Lebowski. I mean, this one in itself is, oddly enough, a different kind of role that Flea has played. Most people never talk about Flea in this movie, but I'm going to talk about Flea in this movie. He's for the brief time he's in the movie, he's actually pretty damn entertaining. I'm going off on a bit of a tangent. Thank you, Flea. The way they set up all these characters, you think they're going to be like a certain thing. Like you thought Jon Hamm in the beginning, you thought him and his girl were going to be the kind of like his allies in the thing, and you thought Kevin Spacey's character was going to be the big bad of it, and you thought Jamie Foxx was going to be like the evil muscle character. It sets up so many things which in other films was going to be the typical thing that we see all the time, but this film actually subverted your expectations. So I wasn't expecting that as the plot progresses, that it was going to be Jon Hamm was going to be the big final bad of this whole thing, and the execution is extremely well done, and it actually complements the development of Baby as a character. And the thing that sets him off is the fact that his girl is now dead, and really, for all intents and purposes, it's all Baby's fault. So it was so stuff like that was the stuff that made Baby Driver unique in its own regards. Ansel Elgort's performance is a star maker. I hope to see more of him in other stuff, but there were so many different subtleties to him. That's the word of the day with this particular review, subtle, because if there's anything Edgar Wright is somehow able to do in all of his movies, in the midst of all this crazy kinetic action and madness happening all around him, it's the subtleties that you notice, particularly when you watch his stuff over and over again, that really enrich the film. And this one has a lot of it. And even with the characters, and I'll say Baby has some really interesting subtleties to him that makes his story more interesting than the normal fare, even on criminal terms. The whole notion that he has tinnitus, and just the only way that he can function is just by keeping music pumping through his head all the time. It's a great excuse to have a soundtrack, but at the same time, it makes him singular in his body language. It makes him interesting in the way he communicates with other people, and it actually, I think, one of my favorite things, even though the romantic plot between him and Lily James's character with Deborah, it's a great romantic subplot. But I actually really liked him with his foster father, who himself is deaf and communicates sign language. I'm noticing that seems to be a thing in movies now, that they're putting a lot of emphasis on characters who do sign language. I mean, one of the reasons I love John Wick Chapter 2 was the fact that the muscle villain of it was Ares, who also communicated with sign language. So keep that going. That's a good trope. That's something that's a new thing, which I hope they keep going. Overall, I think if there's anything that makes this one work, it's definitely the strong character dynamic and the natural progression of the story, which makes it interesting. On a personal in-joke, another thing that made this one enjoyable, I go to Dragon Con all the time. So it was hilarious to me in the whole scene where he's running from the cops, that there he is in Peachtree Center. For anyone who's ever been to Dragon Con, you know that shopping center. So I'm expecting when I go there this year to see a load of baby cosplayers, and that's going to be hilarious. And I'm going to count them. I'll probably do some live streaming from Dragon Con, and I'll tell you when I see them. So that was another thing that made it funny for me. Of course, nowadays with so many films being made in Georgia, it's always so much fun to notice little like, I know that spot. Watching the climax of The Nice Guys, same thing. So that was, for me, a nice personal thing. Now, how does it measure up compared to Edgar Wright's other films? I'd say it's definitely another testament to his artistry and how amazing he is as a filmmaker. I'd say in the grand scheme, compared to his other works, I'd still say Hot Fuzz is probably still, for my money, his best work. And as far as anything not related to Simon Pegg, I'm still going to say Scott Pilgrim is one that I can just watch over and over again. I'll probably wind up buying this one as well just to complete the set, and I'll have no problem watching it over and over. I'd say this one, if there's any reason to watch it, it's just for the sheer artistry of what he accomplishes. But I'd say on a narrative progression level, the characters are great, but I'd say just on an action level, where it starts off really great with these great chase sequences, and then it feels a bit rushed at the very end, that's where I think the shortcoming comes through. Whereas the final showdowns in Scott Pilgrim and the final showdowns in Hot Fuzz is just consistent energy like all throughout, and it's always keeping you guessing where it's going. Pretty much at the end of Baby Driver, once you got the vibe of who the main villain was and how it was going to progress, you it didn't really surprise you after that. And I think that was definitely to the detriment of the film. But it's still a fantastic addition to his catalog. So overall, final Narcotic Casserole rating, I'm going to give Baby Driver a 3.5 servings. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Are there any other things I may have missed, or is there anything that you'd like to add to it? Leave it here on the comments below, and for more reviews and more additional content, just keep it here and subscribe to Narcotic Casserole.